Okay, welcome. Welcome to the 39th episode of the IoT Happy Hour here at Balena. How are you doing? Hope you're well. How are you doing, friends?
Doing well.
Yeah, doing
well.
Doing good. It's Friday. It's happy hour.
Friday,
Of course.
Happy hour.
But it's raining.
I'm still with some water. Sorry.
It's raining in Phoenix, so I
Yeah.
don't know what that means.
It's actually cloudy and raining.
No way. It
yeah.
rains. This year rained a lot.
It hasn't rained in. I can't remember. I think it rained in August. If maybe. So.
All right. So today we have here our colleague Kyle. I don't know how to put my finger, because we are going to talk about one of the most downloaded applications on balenaHub, which is PiHole. So if you need to, do some ad blockers or similar things, one of the top 5 downloaded application, install application, actually deploy application on balenaHub, it's PiHole. So we will get into all the details to get PiHole running on a Pi 3, I guess, with balena. So I think that's really interesting. I don't know if in the audience we have anyone who wants to use PiHole, but I think I want to. This is why we are doing this IoT Happy Hour.
Right. I've never used it. I've never run it. So selfishly, this is going to be very
I've used this in a couple different ways, which is great.
But John, be careful, because maybe your ring it's gonna stop working.
I will bring up something later. When we're into some of the DNS stuff, an experience that I had with PiHole, which is probably a more advanced topic. But one of the fundamental values of PiHole is speeding up your browsing. Because you don't quite realize how many hooks are in every site that you go to. Even seemingly innocuous sites have just a ton of tracking. And it's interesting to look at the PiHole dashboard, which I'm sure Kyle will take us through, where you can see that. But, the immediate benefit is, wow, everything's faster.
It's even if you're not blocking, say, 20% of your web traffic, having a local DNS cache in your house also speeds things up. Just that it's not going out to a server every time it needs to request something. It'll go to your Pi, and if your Pi already knows the answer, it'll just send it right back. That, like, even without any blocking at all, a local DNS cache can potentially speed things up a lot.
Yeah, it's a multifaceted tool.
Yeah.
Kyle,
Awesome.
maybe a more fundamental question before getting on your desk. It's why did you install PiHole at home? It's you had any issue, or you wanted to solve anything specific?
I like a network level ad blocker. Well, this is going to get a bit into how it works at the core, but I
was just going to say, should we describe what is PiHole before, like a high level for the audience? What exactly is it?
Yeah, PiHole is a DNS level ad blocker. So if configured correctly, it will block queries to websites that serve up ads. So before the ad even gets as far as your browser and, say, hidden by a plugin or an extension, as soon as your browser or IoT device or smart camera tries to contact that website that serves up ads or tracking sites or anything like that, it will immediately get refused by the PiHole. So it reduces your network traffic in that sense, and can often function much better than, say, a browser plugin would. A browser plugin can do the very same thing, but only in your browser. It doesn't help you with maybe some of your IoT devices that are phoning home all the time. Maybe, I don't want to throw any company under the rug here, but maybe you bought a smart camera, and it likes to send data back to the owners, like whoever makes the camera all the time. Those kind of things can be blocked at a network level, where a browser plugin wouldn't get the job done. So that was my main use case. I have a lot of smart devices in my home, and I like knowing that there's something on my network inspecting all that traffic before the request is even made.
That's really cool. Yeah, looking forward to see how you select URLs or what you catch as well.
Yeah, and it's important to note that it has a white list and a black list feature where you can manually control some of those things. So it's not all or nothing, because the reality of using the interwebs nowadays, there are things that you need to have.
Yeah, there's that's a number one request I get from my wife is she says, I'm trying to do my job and I can't load this page. What did you do? And I'm like, all right, what's the URL? I'll go and allow it. And then I added the allow list. But then you know it's working.
Yeah. And I'll share some of mine at the appropriate time later when we get to that point.
We have some comments into the chat as well. So we have, Chris. Hello, Chris. We will have your voice in a bit. And I shot JR saying that he has some reservations to don't create a bottleneck or a unique point of failure. What do you think?
That is a good point. The thing is, all of your traffic isn't necessarily being routed through it. It's not like it's a VPN or a gateway to your network, just the DNS queries, which is like the phone book or the address book for these websites. So rather than blocking all of the traffic from a site, it's simply when your browser or smart device wants to get the IP address of a URL. So say the URL is weserveads.com. Your IoT device says, hey, DNS server, I need an IP address for this website. PiHole returns a dummy address, so it never actually goes out to the internet. So think of the PiHole as like a filtered phone book, not as a gateway managing all of your traffic. Once the address has been returned to the device that requested it, the traffic still goes out to the internet through a normal route. It's just up to the PiHole. The PiHole can give you a fake address. So if you're trying to look up some sign making company and PiHole gave you a fake address, then you could still keep making internet requests, but you just have the wrong address or phone number for that particular company.
Yeah, and if the PiHole goes down, your DNS just reverts to whatever you were using, depending on how you have your systems configured.
Yeah, depends how you have things set up. You can have fallbacks, and also most devices have a local cache. So the PiHole can be down, and your web browsing might continue to work until you try to open a new website, and then it might fail. Yeah, it's DNS only. So it's handling very little traffic. DNS requests are small and fast. Everything else will go through your normal gateway. Once the address and the IP part has been determined, that's the important bit.
Really cool. And you have a PiHole on your desk?
I have one in my basement, my production one, which I will not break while we're on a stream.
Oh, come on.
What's on your basement, David?
The whole lab is down there. The production lab is down there. This device is just a Raspberry Pi 3 in a case with a screen that is not displaying anything at the moment. But hopefully by the end of the stream, we'll have PiHole with pad being displayed. So the PiHole stats will be shown on that screen. So this will become a PiHole very soon.
That's a nice hook, to show something really cool.
I like that little LCD on top of that as well.
Yeah, neat. That's a nice feature of that. Like, I don't know how many people running PiHole today are actually using the screen aspect of it, but it's there already. So if you have a compatible screen, then it shows nice little stats about what's being blocked and the temperature and the CPU and the performance and all the things you want to see at a quick glance when it's set up in your production lab in the basement like I have.
Yeah, and I should say that, I've run PiHole on a Pi 3 for months and months and months at a time. It's incredibly stable. So if you're worried about outages, it's really, my experience anyway, has been, as long as your power to your house or your office stays up, PiHole stays up. It's a very stable deployment.
My modem, router, and PiHole are on a big battery in the basement, so I'm covered in that case too, hopefully.
All right. So as Kyle shows something that it's on his desk, maybe let's get into what's on your desk and let's see what anyone has in his desk.
Oh, absolutely!
Anyone wants to sing the jingle?
Wait. Kyle, do you want to sing it live, or do we want to go with virtual Chris for the day?
I think virtual Chris is the way to go.
Or okay. John, you want to sing, or
no?
We had a nice Andrew's version last week, actually.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm worried about, is competing with Andrew's version. So we better go digital.
But let's do the Christmas one. Or
you want to revisit Christmas?
No,
I really like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's
Go
it.
ahead. Go with the
Okay.
Christmas one. Yeah, that was a good one.
What's on your desk?
How did I miss seeing that one? I haven't seen that one.
Oh, that was the Christmas special. I try to think. Let's see if we back out number 34, number 35. I can't remember, but it was, yeah, if you go search by dates, it was right
Yeah.
prior to the holidays.
And actually, we cut it for the release party. So
Yeah. And then we trimmed it for that too. Yeah.
I know.
it's sad that when we play the jingle, people cannot see your faces. Actually, I was seeing your faces, people crying like
Just dying at that one.
I don't know. It's like a Christmas tree, you know. Once Ascension Sunday passes, you gotta.
Yeah, I miss it. I wanted to hear it again. Sorry.
All right. Well, let me go first.
Oh,
And
let me do some zoom. Wait a
do
second.
some zooming. Hang on.
Whoops, sorry.
Oh, that's not it.
Okay, sorry. We will have our faces here today.
And I got a Compute Module 4, which I don't know why I didn't realize this, but it is just absolutely tiny. So unboxing live right here, unboxing video.
Wow,
And
nice.
there it is. Come on, Blurry Cam. Come on. There we go.
Nice.
Yeah.
I didn't realize
So,
there was a different form factor from the 3.
right, exactly.
Yes.
And that's what I wanted to show because there is the
Oh,
difference between them. Yeah. So the Compute Module 3 uses the Edge connector, a DDR2 SODIMM form factor. The Compute Module 4 now uses two vertical mount connectors. So you stick it down and snap it into place. Come on, Blurry Cam. Come on, Blurry Cam. Get it. But yeah, so
What is this
finally got a
version?
hold.
Yeah, I should
Finally.
ask the same. What
This
specs?
is what specs? This is the 2 gig of RAM, 16 gig of eMMC, no wireless. They come in a lot of different SKUs,
Yeah,
various memory, eMMC combinations, as well as with or without Wi-Fi. But it's a little bit hard, maybe sort of when I have it held that close up to the camera. But I mean, this thing is just absolutely tiny. It's just right in the, just a few inches. I mean, I knew that, but it just, until I had it in my hand, I didn't realize just how small it is. So there's the, come on, Blurry Cam, come on.
And you have a port to use it, or?
I do have a carrier board to drop it onto. Yeah. So, anyways,
actually off topic, but those connectors remind me to the Intel Edison.
Yeah, similar.
Yeah, it's the same or it's similar.
I don't know if it's the same or not the same, but try that. There we go.
Some people are having fun of your camera on the channel.
How much
Autofocus? My camera doesn't have autofocus. That's the whole point. You have to get it just right.
Almost manual.
Yeah.
How much is that, David?
$30 for this one. Now the price points vary based on the memory or eMMC plus Wi-Fi or no Wi-Fi, so they do vary. But yep. So Compute Module 4 is what's on my desk.
So I'm looking forward to do the episode of the FIN 2.0. Hopefully.
Yep. The next
other
generation FIN will transition to this form factor. So obviously, on a FIN right now, you've got the Compute Module 3 sitting in the back horizontally. So this is going to take some redesign work, of course, to now use those new connectors. But yep.
And actually, on the forums, if you need specific requirements for the Fin 2.0, actually you can get into the forums and introduce, hey, I would like to have a Fin 2.0 with this requirement. So feel free to go. Maybe we can put the link here so people can get into.
Yeah, I'll go grab that while you guys do what's on your desk, and I'm laughing.
Actually, this week I read a couple of users on the forums introducing new features that they would like to see on the Fin. So.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll go grab that link. What else is on your desk, guys?
John, you have something on your desk? You're mute.
I don't have anything technical, but I have one of these.
What's that, a lottery ticket? He's playing the lottery?
This is a $750 million Powerball ticket.
And I now it's when you say it, and I won. And
And
I did the impossible, and I got no numbers.
No
numbers.
She got a prize for that.
No early retirement for me. And you think like, in the key with these things, and we don't usually buy lottery tickets, but people think about winning $730 million or $1 million. Even if you won $50,000, that's a lot of gear that you can buy.
You can get a big desk with a lot of things on it.
I can maybe one of the first things I would get would be one of those smart screwdrivers.
Oh, those are nice.
Yeah. Your Santa didn't bring the screwdriver.
Okay.
All right, Kyle, do you want to go next, or should I show what's on my desk? What do you think?
Well, I showed you the Pi 3 with the screen on it.
Get closer to your computer, Kyle.
So I showed you this, which hopefully will turn into a PiHole very soon. It has nothing on it right now. I pushed it to an empty app, so there's no release, but it does save us having to flash it over and over. I also have a Pi 4 in a case, no screen, just the official Pi 4 case.
Yeah, can see it there. Yep, the gloss black one is nice.
I am doing a little bit of hacking probably this weekend on a new Jetson Nano that just arrived. I have some more work to do on my my ZoneMinder application. My OpenCV install is not quite behaving, so I do have a brand new Jetson Nano that I can test some more machine learning stuff on. And since my Secret Santa is in the chat, I have my little Secret Santa gift.
What is that, Legos?
Yeah, it's my little Lego Porsche that Chris got.
Maybe you have to explain the Secret Santa thing.
Well, what we did at Balena is a number of people volunteered to have their names thrown into a pot, and you draw out a random person to buy gifts for. And so everybody's buying gifts for everybody else with a pretty fixed price limit. And then we had a big reveal in January to see who got what for whom. It was really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I participated. It was really fun. Yeah. Okay, let me show you what's on my desk, because some minutes before I got into the IoT Happy Hour, I was actually recording my workshop. So next week, it's the Things conference. So if you like LoRaWAN and so on, so this will be the third participation of Balena on the Things conference. Actually, Sean and Chris have been participated in previous editions. So I'm doing a workshop about gateway fundamentals, about the basic station that probably most of you know on the IoT Happy Hour, and actually how to convert your gateway in something else, because as you run a container with a LoRa gateway, why don't introduce other containers that do something else on your gateway? And actually on my table, I have the LoRa gateway that I'm using, that it's for the workshop, that it's a Balena Fin, as David showed with the compute module, with a concentrator at rack 2245 that actually we gave 20 to first 20 people that registered to the workshop. Probably they are receiving it right now. And to test it, I already showed this on previous editions, but I'm using this LoRa node, that it's as well a rack product, that it's a WizBlocks. Okay, that it's you can add more sensors here with a smart screwdriver. So I only have one sensor. This is a rack concentrator, the LoRa concentrator, and this is the environment sensor. So it sends data from gas, temperature, pressure, and humidity. But I'm playing with another LoRa node that actually Aaron shipped me from Pi Supply. That it's this. This is a microbit LoRa node. And actually, I don't know if you know microbit. Microbit is this board.
Yeah,
So-
that's the BBC one.
Yeah, the BBC microbit. And actually, you can do this. And you can have a LoRa node with a microbit BBC.
Wow.
So actually, probably this will be my weekend project. It's only emits in one channel. So the gateway is receiving 8 channels. But yeah, I'm gonna try to play with this on the. I don't know if we will have time to show this on the workshop, but I'm very happy to play with this. Thank you, Aaron, for sending me this. And that's what's on my desk.
There's one more thing
Super
that
cool.
I think we can't go this week without talking about our Pi Pico, which is their new
Is it
Arduino-like
Pico
microcontroller.
or Pico?
I think Pico.
Pico.
Pico?
I don't know. We'll have
and
to find out.
It's not out quite yet, but the price point of $4 seems like it will be very popular.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see. They did a lot of neat things with the GPIO and the form factor. That if you Google it, you can actually see some specs. It's pretty interesting. Anybody have any thoughts about the Pico?
Let me check comments real quick. Looks like quite
actually,
a
I have seen
few.
different comments. I have seen people that it's really excited, and other people that it's kind of indifferent. Like there is nothing. It's not introducing anything new into the ecosystem.
Except that the Raspberry ecosystem has so many community members that that could be an advantage. That there's just a nice base of people as you're exploring. I imagine that community will offer up some interesting projects and help.
I suspect because it will be a very popular device. I suspect there's going to be some really cool projects that get built, whether that's on Hackster, Hackaday, any of the TinyML stuff or OpenCV kind of things. So I'm thinking it's probably gonna have quite a few neat builds once it's out. Right now, I think I saw it's on the front of magazine covers in the UK. So if you live in the UK, go down to your local bookstore. I have seen a few reports of folks being able to purchase them, but I don't know if all resellers and retailers have them yet. So, they'll probably slowly trickle out, I'm sure.
But it's interesting, this AB comment, right? So probably our parents, I don't know if you were developers or not, but they were programming microcontrollers in assembler, maybe. We could program microcontrollers in C, no, maybe. But our children will program microcontrollers in Python or even blocks, like these microbit blocks or whatever. So that's kind of sad, eh?
It's progress.
I don't know if it's sad or not.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I imagine it'll spark a lot of other development. I mean, if you're looking for the Pico to have Wi-Fi or things like that, it doesn't. It's a base kind of thing, but things keep getting smaller and more powerful, and the use cases where you don't need all the functionality of something bigger and more expensive. If it's $4 or $5, you start to imagine a lot of ways you might use it.
But even on the point of view of the price, I'm not sure it brings anything innovative as ST or something else can have.
Right. Yeah. It's sort of a specific use kind of device, but I don't know if you're building something, you need 1,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's try to get an episode about that.
Yeah, we'll focus Yeah, we'll focus on one of those. But I'm looking at the clock. We better get building.
Yeah.
We've got some advertisements that we need to block.
Yeah, we do.
So maybe let's do a quick review of balenaHub. I think since long time ago we don't see balenaHub. What's
Full
do
screen.
you know if there are? Yeah. Let's go from new applications that we have on Hub. What do you think? Who volunteers for that?
I don't have it open, so I can't see too well.
So we have balena locating, but it's if you want to locate Bluetooth beacons on your house or whatever. So that's a very good application made by our friend Phil, who today
we saw that last week in sort of in practice.
We have a screenlay that was here, bird watcher, in case that you want to create a bird nest with edge impulse and so on. But then a sound, train departure display, which is a cruise application to see the departure of next trains getting into next to your house. Minecraft, which you already know. One new application this week, it's Wi-Fi repeater. So if you need to create a Wi-Fi repeater at your home and you have a Pi available, that's what you need. We have AdGuard from Kyle. Maybe we can give 5 cents of AdGuard as well at some point today.
Mm-hmm.
Nextcloud, Node-RED, Bluetooth router, Uptime robot, and let's get into the new ones. So we have Home Assistant. So this one, I think it deserves as well an IoT Happy Hour at some point. We have RubyTag, which was what last episode of the IoT Happy Hour was about, to build an application with balena blocks to get this Bluetooth sensor connected to Grafana. We have Bookstack that was already here with Kyle, right, some weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
PiHole, the Things Network Basic Station, in case that you want to build a LoRaWAN gateway. We have a Scratch. Now we were talking about microbit. You have Scratch, so just with a click on a Raspberry Pi 4, minimum 4 gigs of RAM. You can have just a Pi running Scratch. Kerberos, Open Datacam that have been here, Octobalena.
Mm-hmm.
We had a video, Edge Impulse, Inky Shot, Coral. Yeah, I think we have tons of applications. Actually, major part of them are made by the community, and like less than half by balena. So yeah, looking forward to invite you to create if you are building your IoT Edge application, feel free to submit your application on balenaHub. So we will help you to show your applications to the community.
Yep,
so let's get
absolutely.
into the PiHole. Oh, do you want to comment something about Hub?
No, I was going to say real quickly, for folks out there in the community who do build and submit, by all means, we could devote an episode to it in the future as well, just like we're devoting one to PiHole today. So get your applications in there.
All right, so we give the word to Kyle. It's time to get things done. All yours, Kyle.
Sure. So I was hoping we could do as much of this as we can in a web browser today. The idea being we want to see how easy it is to get this up and running without any coding, if you're not comfortable with that, and how blocks, like our blocks components that we talked about on the previous episode, how those can play into keeping this simple, but still having a lot of powerful functionality. So it's really easy to build and add on to things, and not having to redo work that might have already been done before. So I was thinking we'd just start in Hub and just go ahead and click the deploy button and see how long it takes us to get this set up in my dashboard.
Do I need to start a timer?
I'd prefer you didn't, but I'm also not going to stop you.
No, let's see it.
And I see Chris just under the wire managed to get NanoPi support in here. I approved his merge request just a few minutes ago because he tried to set up NanoPi. So it's nice to see more devices that I don't personally own, but other people are testing for me, verifying that this does in fact work the way we'd like.
NanoPi? I didn't realize that had an Ethernet port. I thought, oh, wait a minute. I'm thinking of the SOM version of it. Go ahead.
It also works over wireless, though. It's not recommended, but there's no reason you couldn't run PiHole on wireless. It's not the way you'd typically want to run a network.
Gotcha.
Let's see what this deploy gets us. All right. So it took me straight to my nice busy organization, and it did default to Pi 3, which is what I have beside me. So that's perfect. There are a few things hidden in advanced right now, but I'm going to skip those for the moment. We can just change those later.
Okay.
Let's see what it creates for us. Now, what it's going to do, as you can see here, is it's actually downloading the code from GitHub directly from my repository, and it will start to build it in the background without you having to do any cloning or pushing at all. It should be doing its own build. So it should be building.
Yeah, it might
now.
take a minute. Sometimes there it goes. Yep.
There you go. So now that that's building, let's have a look at the environment variables it's set up for us, and then we'll move this device from my other static app over here while the release runs. So environment variables, it has set up some defaults for us. So what we have here, and right off the bat, I'm going to change these two Ethernet options to Wi-Fi because we are using Wi-Fi for this case. I made the default Ethernet because that's the preferred way to run it, but there's no reason we can't do this on Wi-Fi. Actually, maybe I'll override it on the device side. That might be better. Once the device is added, then we'll override it.
I thought that you needed Ethernet connection to make a PiHole run.
No, either will work. It's just a matter of what you set for these two fields. You need to set it to Wi-Fi or Ethernet, but it does not need to be Ethernet by any means. I've been testing with Wi-Fi all week because I don't have another Ethernet connection at my desk up here.
And I think it's nice to note that these environmental variables are deployed at the same time you use deploy with Balena. It's gathering up the defaults that are in your repo and inserting them in here automatically.
Exactly. So these, I'm not going to change them right now. I think once we have the device moved over here, I will adjust these to be Wi-Fi. I'll point it now while we're in here. These default DNS settings, what I have, which is fully optional on the PiHole repo, is a secondary service that's running something called Unbound. Unbound is its own recursive DNS resolver. So if PiHole will do the blocking, but it doesn't actually do any of its own DNS lookups. It expects you to point it at an upstream server. By default, that's probably your ISP, or maybe you pointed to something like Google's DNS, like 8.8.8.8, or Cloudflare, which is 1.1.1.1. So these are all public DNS listings, so public phone books out on the internet where any computer can go and say, hey, how do I reach this URL? And then an IP address will be returned. What Unbound does, and is being used by default in this project, Unbound will do that lookup recursively on its own. So it's like running your own resolver in your house. So it actually contacts I think they're called the domain authorities for each level. So if you say provide like hub.balena.com, I believe it will start at the .com level. It will contact the .com owner and say, all right, let me know what the next step is. Where can I find Balena? And then it will refer you to Balena. And then it will say, okay, next step, where do I find hub.com, .balena.com. And it will build the entire URL without contacting a central server that might, if you're paranoid, be tracking your data and what sites you're visiting. So again, you don't need to use this. Your ISP will do it by default, or you can use the third-party one like Google. I think PiHole out of the box points to, it was using Google, but now they're using a different service whose name is escaping me at the moment. Does anybody recall what the default is for?
It's not 8.8.4.4 and 8.8.8.8.
I think a very recent release they changed it to another provider, and their name is escaping me, unfortunately. That's too bad. It would have been some free advertising.
Oh well,
but they did switch to another provider, but it works the same as Google.
You can essentially point it wherever you want, though. So like AB is asking, can you point it to duck DNS? So I'm not familiar with duck DNS, but the point is that it's configurable.
Yes, I believe I think duck DNS is a normal public DNS server, then yes, you could put in duck DNS. You could also put in DNS servers that do their own blocking. There are sites out there. I think Cloudflare even has one, like 1.1.1.2, does your DNS resolving and some malware blocking. So these are just the upstreams where the PiHole will put itself in the middle, and as long as it doesn't deem what you've requested to be blocked or an ad of some kind, it will give it to the upstream, get the answer, and then cache that answer. So next time you ask, it doesn't need to look it up again. So PiHole will cache the answer locally, but it will, the first time, it has to ask somebody else, hey, what is this? I've deemed this not a bad thing, but I still need to know what the real address is. So in this case, we're actually pointing to an internal service, which is unbound, doing our recursive resolving for us. So let's go and look and see if our release has been built. It looks like it has. I think we have a release here. There, succeeded release. So I'm going to quickly switch windows and move a device into this app in a way that you can't quite see me, I don't think.
You change the resolution as well.
Yes, yeah.
It's narrower, but it's all right.
Should be okay.
Move device. All right, now hopefully, there it is. So one of the configuration values that we didn't look at yet is actually a device configure variable. This the GPU memory setting was set for default on this application to 64 meg. So Balena OS will, I believe, run with a 16 meg limit on memory being used for the display driver. That's typically something you'd want to increase if you know you're going to have a screen attached or an HDMI monitor or something. So this app has this built-in setting of the GPU memory.
Yep.
And we've set it to 64. You could go higher, you could go 128. But for what we're displaying, 64 is more than enough. So that is also set by default on the app. And of course, the device inherited that from the fleet level. We can override it here if we want, but there's no need. 64 is fine for this use case. And it should be downloading the application still. Good. So you can see it's downloading dbus, the FBCP block, which is a very nice block that we have deployed through Balena blocks. This is what's actually going to be copying the PiHole statistics from an STD, a standard output, onto your physical screen. So I believe it's called frame buffer copy is the point. And, and it actually was generating the image on our tiny little screen over here. There's PiHole itself, which is still downloading. And here's that unbound service. Again, the unbound resolver is optional. You can point it to DuckDNS, you can point it to something else. But I like having the option of your own resolver that runs on the same device as the one doing the ad blocking. So while we're waiting for this to download, is there any other questions before we move on? I feel like we're watching.
Let me check the comments. I don't see any other questions that have rolled in. No.
Great.
Well, I'll just add that one of the nice things that we haven't mentioned before is that when you deploy PiHole, it deploys an interface that you can reach on your local subnet for management, and that's the piece that you're going to put on the screen. Yep. This is Tucker. But it's also accessible, through anywhere else on your network for interaction, which makes the whole experience with PiHole and managing it once it's deployed very easy.
Yeah, and there are also third-party Android and iPhone apps that can connect to your PiHole interface as well. If you give it an IP address of your PiHole, it can let you connect directly to the interface and configure it. So often I'll be in the basement, and my wife says, "Can you please unblock this?" I'll just do it from my phone. I'm not going to go pull up a web browser or anything like that. So let's go back to that device configuration again, or the device variables again, because I know right offhand there's something we need to change in here. Let's change this to wireless, because the PiHole service will fail to start if it can't find a device called the 80. So we're just going to avoid that error and go straight for wireless LAN. This password is fine, this test, and we're going to keep using unbound DNS for now. You can override this per device or across your whole fleet, but because this is an internal address, it is pointing to another service on that same device. So if you have multiple Pis running on multiple Raspberry Pis, they will point to their own internal unbound server, and they won't be sharing each other's. This is an internal address here. So it looks like we're almost started here. I'll start downloading. PiHole service is restarting since I gave it new environment variable. Let's see if it starts up for us.
Did you pray the gods of the demos?
Yeah, did you say your prayers?
I prayed to somebody. I don't know if it was the demo gods. I might have gotten the name wrong, but we'll see. There's just so many of the different demo gods. I don't know.
Yeah, got to get the right one.
The PiHole, Kyle, PiHole's, that service is pretty small, and when it's running, it's pretty lightweight too, right? Can you
Yes,
talk a
yes.
little bit about that?
Yeah, quite a bit actually, because it's not handling all of your internet traffic as we discussed earlier. It's just handling quick lookups, and it's usually handing that off to another service that actually provides a real address. All it has to do is take the request, say like, oh, you want this URL, and it looks at its blocked sites and its allowed sites, and it runs it through a bunch of filters that are provided by default, and you can add to those filters if you want. These are publicly listed block lists and allow lists. You can change those filters, or you can just add exceptions where you need them. And once it gets through those filters, which is quite fast, it's just a quick database check. It will hand out, it'll either respond with the response from its cache, or it will go upstream and get the proper address and then cache it and return it to you. So the whole process is very quick. And although you will see a lot of logging of DNS requests coming in if you have a lot of devices on your network, each request is in the milliseconds range. So the PiHole itself, the CPU usage should be quite reasonable. In fact, it would be even lower if you're not using something like a screen or Unbound as a recursive resolver. If it was just the PiHole app, a lot of people run this on other heavily loaded servers because it only has to do one small thing. I like having a dedicated device because I never want this device to go offline. If it's only running PiHole and doing the DNS resolve, all of my other servers I can unplug and reboot all I want, as long as I don't break the home internet and get in trouble, right? So it looks like it started up. What it's done here when it booted is it downloaded all these white lists that were provided by default and loaded them into the database and started listening on the public addresses, and it's enabled blocking. It prints out the version info here and the service is running. So let's have a quick look at the web UI. If we're ready to dive into that next.
Yeah, Kyle, real quick, while you're doing that, the LCD driver, that's from FBCP, is that correct? Is that what's driving the little screen that you have on your unit there, you think?
Exactly. The FBCP block is what's going to be driving the screen, but I haven't fully enabled that yet. So if we look at the FBCP logs in a few minutes, I think it'll tell us something along the lines of this value hasn't been set, and warn us that nothing will be displayed on the screen, because I need to set my screen type and probably my resolution as well before that'll work. So we included a few defaults like increasing the GPU memory, but we left off things that would specify your screen type and resolution because there's so many varieties out there. So I'll do a quick glance at the dashboard, and then we can hop into making sure that screen works for us. Does that sound good?
Yep.
All right, so let's see if this dashboard can work for us.
We have one more question, but we'll hold that for 1 second while you bring this up, because let's take a look at it.
Did you check that StreamYard doesn't get blocked?
Yeah, he's about to kill himself.
This is why I'm not using this for my DNS yet. So there's nobody making any requests here at the moment. So there's no queries in the last 24 hours. There's no client activity. And here it would show a breakdown of the type of query and whether it was answered by the block list or the cache or your upstream provider, which in this case is the local device, Unbound. But it does show the permitted domains. These are all internal lookups, so those are nothing you really need to worry about. But if we want to make something show up there, sorry, the screen resolution will change for a moment, but I can do a quick test, and I will try doing a DNS lookup on this device's IP, which is 175. So if I'm in my other window here, which I know you can't see, but if I do a quick test, 175. Okay, I got a response in my terminal window. Let's see if it showed up in the query log over here. That's me right there making that request. So that's my my
Can you zoom
workstation IP
in
address.
a bit?
Yeah, the text is
Yeah, I
pretty
can do that.
small.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So that's my workstation's IP address, and this is the URL I requested. And it forwarded it to the Unbound server to get me a proper address. Now I'm going to do a slightly different query. And if I wanted to, I could quickly add this to the block list. So if I saw that this was allowed through and I didn't want it to be, I would just add it to my block list right here. If it wasn't caught by filters, you can have manual lists. So I'm going to do one quick other test that's almost the same, but this one should fail to pass DNS, the DNS security settings. So I'm just going to try this one. Now this isn't an ad site. This is more of a DNS security setting, so it's a bit more advanced. But I want to see if it changed the result at all. Big OK, big fail. So it did forward it, but you can see it said serve fail here. This is because this particular URL is meant to fail DNS lookups. So if you hit this domain, you're supposed to get this response. It's how you verify that your DNS security settings are correct. If you can get an OK response from this URL and a fail from this URL, then you know your security settings are good. And these both came from my workstation. So this is actually resolving queries the way we wanted. And those will start to fill up in the dashboard over time. This is a 24-hour period, but you can see your full query log, and you can go into so much detail in here, adjusting your block and allow list. Something I do use all the time when I'm having trouble realizing why a website won't work for me. I don't know what URL it's querying that might be breaking it, is I can just go in here, it's disable. I can disable it for 5 minutes or 10 seconds or a custom amount of time. That really helps me troubleshoot things. Like if I'm concerned that maybe PiHole is blocking something, but I don't know what it's blocking, I'll disable it for 5 minutes, run my test again, and if it gets through, then I've narrowed it down, and I have to go look at the query log to see what I need to be allowing through there.
I'm getting ideas about productivity and this feature, actually.
Oh, absolutely. It's extremely configurable, and I mean, the community around PiHole is fantastic. Like, this is all open source stuff. These guys are great, and it's updated all the time, too. So we've got some time here. Let's see if we can get the screen working, because at the moment, my even though this is now blocking, I don't know if you can see that well, it's blocking ads, but there's nothing on the screen.
Yeah, nothing there yet.
Wait a
Oh,
second.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it's just hold it back up one more split
Sorry.
second. It's just blank, yeah. The LCD is lit, though. I mean, it is powered.
Yep, it is lit, and it's been lit since it was on the empty app. So the screen's definitely getting power, but even with no app deployed to this device, it's just a white screen. It's just sitting there blank. Let's see if we can enable that using the FBCP block. So we want to go under device variables, and it's this FBCP display setting, which is outlined in the README, both for the FBCP block and on the PiHole README. Both suggest you need to put something here to tell it what kind of display you have attached. Now there's multiple answers. I'm going to change the resolution here for a second, so I can go copy paste the one that does work for my particular screen. So this Adafruit one is the one that I've tested and I know works for the screen. So let's start by adding a screen type for this device. And then we'll see what we end up with, because this is going to trigger the FBCP block to restart. And we'll see if we get anything on the screen after it restarts.
And does that screen support touch as well?
This particular one, I think, does. I've never tried because I've only ever used PiHole on it. So it looks like it's working, at least to some degree, because we have some startup logs showing on there. I have no idea if this is in focus, but there are now app start logs showing on the screen.
Good sign.
And those are from the OS. This is not PiHole yet. This is not our ad blocker yet. This is just the operating system now knows what type of screen it is and knows how to display some basic data.
Yep.
So we'll see when it finishes starting back up what
I
our
linked-
ad output looks like.
Yeah, Kyle, I linked it's in your README. The Adafruit, there's a pair of Adafruits, there's a wave share, no, actually 2, 3, 4 wave shares that are supported there. So yeah, I dropped those in there for folks to check out which TFTs they might have.
Perfect.
But you're saying it based on that environmental variable, it's doing what it needs to drive it. It's pulling down what it needs.
Yep, that's the idea, is by specifying our screen type, it should be loading the driver in the correct configuration in order to copy basic raw data to the screen, because this pad service that we see starting here is really just dumping text to a console. Like on its own, it's not super helpful unless you can have something else piping it to your external HDMI monitor or something like that. So
That self-discovery is very handy because that can be one of the trickiest parts of figuring out, how exactly to get your screen to work and be able to, easily use an environmental variable to try several. If the first one doesn't work, is much easier than any other way.
that's how I figured
Basically,
it out. I had to try them all until I found one that worked for me. I mean, I knew
Right.
the size of my screen, so I narrowed the list a little bit, and I just had to hope that mine was in one of the supported ones, and it was. And I will show you the screen now. Again, it's going to be hard to focus, but what we've got is a very small version of the pad output. It is not fitting our screen correctly. Are you guys able to see that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can definitely see there's some content that is on there.
Yeah.
It's I guess maybe it could be a little like extended, down and right. So the resolution is probably not correct
Oh,
yet.
you're getting glare too. That's part of the problem.
Yeah, that's all right.
that
We
is
can
a big
see that
deal.
there's output there. Absolutely.
There, so you can see that it's like
Mhm.
it's smaller than the screen for some reason.
Yeah, it's not using all the available pixels.
Because pad, I believe, is defaulting to a 240 width resolution of some kind. So we're going to tell this FBC block and the device that, by the way, we know our screen's resolution is actually bigger than that. So we're going to add a few more configuration flags that I'll fix the resolution in a moment here, but I'm going to copy these out of my clipboard because, again, I had to look these up ahead of time to see.
More pixels. We're going HD.
Exactly. We want to add some more pixels and get a better view here. I'm just going to keep this like this for the moment while I copy paste stuff. Sorry about the
That's all right. Nope, it's fine.
So these things are documented on, they're documented very briefly on the PiHole repo. They're documented in a bit more detail, I think, on the balena blocks FBCT repo. If not, we can certainly start adding more detail there. These are all passed to the driver, I believe, to make sure that your screen resolution is picked up correctly. So we're telling it, don't assume the size of my screen. I'm going to give you some very specific values to use when running this driver. And I'm just going to quickly copy and paste these in here. Because usage will vary, and I didn't make these the default because there's a very good chance they won't be appropriate for your screen. But having a view, like being able to look at changes as you make them, is very handy. So you can realize some things work better than others and just test them as you go. So I've added these four. Essentially, I'm saying my resolution is actually 480 by 360. This is forcing it into a certain HDMI mode to use these values. By setting mode 87, it's actually using our custom CVT over here. So now that the size is set, it probably has to reboot. When you set device configuration variables, you would expect to see a reboot. So I would think it is rebooting.
Yep, that's correct. Because those are applied, yes, at boot time. Where do they get appended to? Is it appended, I think, to either the kernel command line that is generated, or is it? It's not all the way down to
config.txt.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
it's not actually in the kernel command line itself.
That's right.
I don't know what the OS does with those. I probably should know, but they do end up as values in the config.txt. So there's actually, I don't know if this is linked yet, but there is an official Raspberry Pi display config.txt wiki page saying what different settings that file will do to your display. That's a very good reference point. If I haven't linked it on the repo already, I very much should. So I'll just reboot in here. Let's see, yeah, it's coming online. Good. While it's rebooting, I'd imagine our dashboard will be unreachable. Yep, nothing's coming up there. So is there anything else we can explain while we wait for this to come back online?
We had a few other questions roll in. AB was asking if the container unbound fails, will PiHole still work? Any idea? I mean, will it continue to run in the background, or is that pretty much it? If that container is down, the whole system is down.
It'll be very limited. Like if unbound fails for some reason, PiHole will stay up, and it will probably respond to anything it already has cached. So if you've requested that site before and it's in the cache and it hasn't expired, it will probably respond with cached addresses. But as soon as it needs an address that it doesn't know, it will ask unbound, and that will fail. That should not bring PiHole down, but it will fail to contact the upstream server, so you'll stop resolving new addresses.
Yeah, which means you're not going to be visiting the website that you are attempting to visit.
Exactly. So in that case, the quickest fix, if you don't want to spend a bunch of time figuring out why unbound isn't working, is go into your device variables and change these, override these to like Google or Cloudflare or something. Like you can just
And there's no automatic failback, I don't think, or is there? Is there a way to?
That's the tricky thing. If you set the secondary DNS, it's technically not a fallback, but the way DNS resolving is done, my understanding anyway, is that it doesn't load balance, but after a certain number of failed requests on DNS1, it will try DNS2. But depending on how the client is handling DNS requests, that is not a very strict rule. Devices don't always do that the way they're supposed to. Some will start with DNS2, so it's not a guaranteed thing. It's not a promised failover. It is nice having a secondary address that isn't internal. Like this is probably perfectly fine having Cloudflare as your backup, but you might still see a few failed requests before it starts using this more and decides that this one is not working.
And when you tested this by using your terminal there on your workstation, but to get this to work across your house and all devices, you're going to open up your router settings and change the DNS to the address of this Raspberry Pi. Is that right?
There's a few ways to accomplish that. Typically, your router is giving out IP addresses by DHCP. And when it does that, it also assigns itself as the primary DNS server. And then your router will ask for ISP or something external. So that way, devices getting a new automatic IP from your router will probably also use your router for DNS lookups. That's generally how these things work. Ways to override that or change what your router is giving out as its DNS server. So when your router can still be your DHCP server, can still give out addresses to clients, but will give them the PiHole address for DNS. That's what I've done. That I find is the simplest method. There's a couple other ways to accomplish this. Without making any changes on your router, you can go to each device and set the DNS manually. A lot of devices you'll find you can't do that, but on say a laptop or your phone, it's not very difficult to change what the DNS server is. You could just change it from your router's address, which might be .1.1, to your PiHole, which might be .1.100. And now then that one device will start using the PiHole. So you don't need to blanket your entire network if you don't want to. You can do it on a per device basis. But if you do it on the router side, you catch those devices where it's not configurable to you. Where like maybe you don't have a dashboard where you can set your custom DNS if it's like a smart camera or something like that.
And you joked about your wife, calling down to you when something's blocked. Yeah. And, it's important to note, like if you're using Google as your primary search engine instead of something like DuckDuckGo or something like that, Google will give you a bunch of ad links at the top. And by default, a lot of those are blocked. So like in my family, people are doing Google searches and they're clicking on the first link in the Google results, and they're blocked because that has like an extreme ad path in it. And if you go into PiHole and you can actually allow those Google servers, you're actually turning off a whole bunch of stuff, allowing a lot of things through. So that's where the on-device settings, for example, can really be an advantage that, it's on your laptop, on your phone. And, I do run PiHole and I do have some Alexa devices and a Ring and things like that. And have found it to be not a problem with those, which was good. Yeah, I was prepared to whitelist certain things, but I found that I didn't have to for the common devices, including things like, Roku, streaming services. Really, there wasn't anything special that I had to do or that it impacted. Now, I do notice, like if I go to CNN, it doesn't like to load video from CNN because there must be there's some ad tracker behind that. And some of that too can be, and this is where Kyle said before, about turning off all of PiHole for 5 minutes, for example, just to see if that is the problem, because it is the internet and who knows what's happening. But PiHole gives you very explicit paths and things that you can whitelist. So there may be 10 different trackers on a site like CNN. Doesn't mean you have to authorize them all and whitelist them all. There may be specific ones that will restore the kind of connectivity you want in a more granular way. It's highly configurable that way as well.
Yeah, and we shouldn't have the assumption that just because you have a smart camera and PiHole decides to start blocking some of those links, most of these devices will continue working without them. If they were designed in a reasonable way, just because it can't phone home and report all of your data to an ad agency or a trucker, most of them keep working.
Yeah.
For the most, like Windows, for example, will send tons of data back to Microsoft, but blocking that generally doesn't break Windows. It still works. It's just sending less data back to their home office. So don't think that as soon as you install this, nothing in your network will work. You will notice some differences, and your network should be faster in theory, but most devices will continue to function to some degree, and you
Sounds
can
like
adjust the allow list beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like some trial and error, right?
Yeah.
And a little
But
bit
out of the box, the standard settings are pretty good.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to go and do a lot of tweaking. I see a question there from iShot JR. I find whenever I deploy, there are certain things that I whitelist, but it's certainly not an extensive laundry list of things that way. And it's important to note that PiHole does not interfere with balena Cloud. So you're not going to suddenly start, seeing all your devices.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. And AB asked about torrents as well. And I was like, I don't know about that one.
It should
So,
work,
all
but I
right.
mean, if you wanted to block things, you could, right?
Gotcha. So
one more use case I meant to get to in terms of changing things in a router. If you there's changing the DNS on the client. There's changing the DNS that your router gives out when it's doing DHCP. There's also the far more advanced method of having your router not be the DHCP server at all and have your PiHole do that. So when new devices get plugged into the network or connected to the Wi-Fi, it's actually PiHole that gives them their own IP address. And that allows you to be more granular in PiHole itself as to which devices can be completely unblocked. That's still possible today, even if it's not the DHCP server, but it does have that built-in functionality. Set up local DNS and where would it be? Probably under group management. Choose what devices get what addresses, and it can replace some more functionality of your router if you wanted to go that route. It's probably the most advanced way to do things because you have to know how to turn those same things off on your router so you don't get conflicts from both, but it is definitely an option. So those three methods, I use the one where my router still does the DHCP and just gives out the PiHole as the DNS server. Now that the devices come back online and we see the dashboard is working and we can see the few queries we made to this device manually, we can also see, if I can get it in view here, where are we? Can we see that text? Here we go.
Yep.
It's filling the screen.
You changed the resolution.
Mm-hmm. Now it's filling the screen.
I'm sure you can't read that text, but what it has on there is percentage of items blocked, things like the last blocked URL, the number of clients it's seen, the temperature, the uptime, the CPU load, all sorts of quick at-a-glance data that doesn't require opening a web browser or a phone app. You can literally just, like, I've got one of these mounted on my wall in the basement next to my networking stuff. I can just take a quick glance to make sure everything's online, behaving as it should, see how much stuff was blocked in the last few days without having to even open a browser. So that's what PAD can do for you with the FBCP block.
It's awesome. And pretty painless to add that capability. There's nothing, no heavy lifting at all. The hardest part is, finding the screen. But if you've used your screen before, like I do, you tend to be like Kyle and have the name and other configuration variables sitting in a file ready to be copied and pasted.
Yeah, I don't want to go through that process again. So it's my personal knowledge base of what screen requires what flags to work.
Right. Great.
All right, we think we are on the top of the hour.
Yeah.
It was
So
super interesting.
Nice work, Kyle. Any other thoughts on the experimenting of some of the other features of PiHole? Like you talked about the more advanced features. Could I control network access on certain clients through PiHole? Like if I don't want my son's laptop to be able to access anything after 11 o'clock at night, could I do that?
I've never done scheduling myself, but you could definitely you can do a per device list. So like you can have a more strict list for certain devices. Like maybe your smart camera goes into this group of really locked down devices where they get almost no access at all. There's a lot of filters, a lot of things blocked. And you can have, say, your wife's laptop where only a few things are blocked, a few tracking sites, but for the most part, ads still work. So you can break it up by device. You can put them into groups. You can put it on just a single device, gets special treatment. Those are all managed under group management, so clients and domains and ad lists. Scheduling, I've never done or seen myself. If it is there, I would have to look at their documentation to figure out how to do it. Being open source, I'm sure if there's a will, there's a way, but it's not something I've ever experienced myself. It's not obvious from the UI, but maybe there's more advanced menus I haven't even dug into yet.
And there's lots of data there too. I find the interface to be just really intuitive, easy to discover, easy to interact with, and easy to sort of glean, when there are problems, what's causing the problem and how to rectify it.
Exactly.
Great job.
all right. Well, anything else? I don't see any other questions. I think we're pretty good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kyle.
No problem. Thank you for having me, guys.
Always great
Yeah.
having you. I expect there will be a lot more PiHoles deployed in the coming days and weeks.
Exactly. We have homework.
So anybody else who wants to test it, the better. It just makes the product better, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, like I have PiHole running, but I'm going to go to balenaHub and I'm going to trigger a deployment from there, which I'll deploy to my existing device, which is an easy way for me to update my PiHole to the latest version.
Yeah.
And no hands on that one. Just one thing.
One click.
Yeah, and if something's not working, just make sure to contact Chris.
Yeah. So I got him on speed dial, man.
Yeah, but that's funny though, right? But that's a good point. If there are issues, obviously reach out to us, post on the forums, let us know if something's not working. But looks like it's pretty good to go out of the box. I mean, you just did it right there live. So, all right.
Exactly. That was a blast. Huh? Yeah. I mean, now I have the video tutorial to install my PiHole.
Exactly.
It's like, I showed JR, feel free to send your wish list later by email.
All right, guys. Well, have a great weekend, everyone. And we will see you next week
with a developer from the community showing some amazing projects as usual on Fridays here.
All right, everyone.
See you guys.
Have a good weekend.
Bye, guys.
Bye.